Hello to all you tea time terrapins out there. How's it going? I'm and I'm joined by someone other than me today. Welcome.
Yep.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Now, this is the first time recording together, and this is your first time on this network. So, would you like to introduce yourself and maybe some of your tokusatsu experience, as well as I guess just the stuff you like?
Yeah, sure. So, like I said, Catherine, as far as Toku experience goes, I have seen, okay, so I grew up with a lot of Power Rangers, like, a lot, maybe all of the first, 15 or 16 seasons of that, I have seen 5 Kamen Rider things, Blade, Vise, Build, Ryuki, and about a third of Kuuga. I've seen.
Well, you should finish the rest of Kuuga.
I will be finishing the rest of Kuuga. Don't worry. I don't think this really counts, but I have seen SSSS Gridman, which is close enough. It's adjacent in spirit, and
I mean, it is a Toku IP.
Yeah, so I'm like, it's an anime, but it's close enough.
Yeah, I mean,
Otherwise,
it's also written by Oh, sorry.
No, I'm just like, otherwise, I've seen one Godzilla movie and the 2 films that are being covered on today's episode. That's it.
Yeah. Well, we're probably gonna split it up into 2 episodes, even though we're doing one recording session. But
Okay, yeah, but they're coming out on the same day, right? So for most people, they'll practically be one episode, I think.
Yeah, I might space it out, but we'll see. I'm still not sure because I have to edit in both cases, so
Right.
We'll see. Really coming in hot, but it's fine. We will persist.
Fine.
But in any case, I'll operate under. So we're gonna do. Yeah, we're gonna split in half, and then we'll figure out. I'll figure out the editing arrangement. But for now, we're gonna do the first.
Yeah.
Gamera. But yeah, just as for me, if for whatever reason you're listening to me specifically for the first time, hello. I've got a bunch of Toku experience. Got into it through. Somehow got into Kamen Rider through Peaker somehow, and then branched out into other stuff, and now I'm doing a Ultraman podcast on this feed that you can listen to. You can listen to me more in depth than the episode 0 for Ultra Q. But I've seen a bunch of kaiju movies at this point, and on the main show, Brad and I are also slowly picking away at kaiju stuff as a side project. So that's because we have our preamble stuff at that we do before the start of a podcast. And yeah. I guess on that note, have you been up to anything lately?
I'm not really sure what would make for good preamble talk. Half because I've mostly been moving.
Yeah.
I've been watching Kamen Rider Kuuga. I can talk about the first third of that. That's adjacent to pod topic.
Go for it. The
first third of Kamen Rider Kuuga is pretty decent. It's very I feel like, since I've seen some of the other ones from around the era, it's a bit more straightforward. I can't really think of a better way to describe.
I would describe Kuuga being the first one of the era. does like change how like you change the context of it. I think because I think when it was coming out, it was kind of pitched as, "Oh, this isn't your dad's Kamen Rider show," and that was part of the pitch and the hook. And then they kept making more of them, and they got weirder and more brazen.
Yeah,
So
so
there's
it's
like
like
there's still a bit of an old school. Sorry.
No, you go.
Okay, yeah. So there's still a bit of that old school sensibility in Kuuga, even if it was still doing its own kind of thing. But I will
Yeah,
also say that like it has its own unique vibe that I think I appreciate.
yeah, it's I think the thing about Kuuga is, so I haven't seen any of the Showa Kamen Riders. I've seen Otto's movie Shin Kamen Rider, but that does not count. It's so I don't know how it stacks up to those, but like, yeah, it's kind of like it's it's a very grounded. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's like
Yeah, I'd say
everything
that's a good
feels
word for
super.
Kuuga.
Everything feels super low scale. It's I feel like the straightforwardness kind of like comes when you like think about like the main protagonist, because like I
Yeah,
like Yusuke
I'd
enough.
say Godai
He's a
is
nice guy.
yeah, I think Godai is like a very what you see is what you get, and I think that's in some ways it works for the show because it's not he's a static character either, but like he's just a good guy who's trying to do his best to help people and deal with a bad situation.
Yeah, definitely. It's a lot of the
And
time the
it's and I
focus seems to be on like, oh, here's the character of the episode that he is helping out, like this teacher who doesn't know if teaching is actually meaningful, or and I think those episodes are generally some of the better or more interesting ones. And I also quite like Ichijo, but yeah, it's a weird show because like in a way it's like, oh, it's not your dad's Kamen Rider to the stuff before it, but in the context of the stuff after it, it kind of is
yeah
your dad's Kamen Rider.
yeah because like immediately after Kuga you get Agito, which is an Inoue show, and like I think Agito carries like some of the same sensibilities of Kuga forward, but with like an Inoue flavor. And then
Right.
when Ryuki comes out, and at the time of release, it was like a lot of people were like, "This is Kamen Rider in name only. What is this?" And I think that kind of like was a real breaking point for like the direction of the franchise afterward, where it was just like, I guess Kamen Rider can be anything. Until they narrowed down a formula after decade, basically. um,
Right.
um,
It's not a bad show. I think it's pretty enjoyable, but I definitely think
yeah,
out of the ones I have seen, it is probably my least favorite so far, and I suspect
I'd be curious
that's
to
not
see.
gonna change.
I do think it's not my favorite, but it's probably like in my top five, if I had to say. And I do
What
think
what are
like
what are your top five?
off the top of my head, I can give my top three as number one is Forze, number two is Fies, and number three is Kuga. And then after that gets kind of weird because I'm like, this is the fluid zone where I can't feel one way or another strongly because I'm like, there's a bunch of the guys I like here. Um, but I would say like the first early 2000s Rider is just like a really solid run all the way through up until halfway through Hibiki when they retool it.
Yes, this seems to be conventional conventional wisdom. I would probably say my like order so far is like Ryuki Fai's build, Blade Kuuga.
Blade's pretty good.
Blade's
I like
pretty
Blade a
good.
lot.
It starts off really janky, I think, but it gets
Yes.
really good.
It definitely has, like, I'd rate Blade. Blade's probably in the show where, like, is in my top 5. It'd probably have to compete with other stuff, but it might depend on my mood. But I do think, like, Blade's finale is one of my favorites in, like, writer, so.
Yeah, definitely. Blade has a really strong finale. But yeah, Kuga's going like good. It is a bit old
Yeah.
fashioned. It is a bit your dad's Kamen Rider, but I still think it's pretty fun. And like, I think in a way, a lot of the other Kamen Riders I've seen, or maybe even all of them, are like the more atypical ones. So it's kind of interesting to be like,
Yeah.
oh, this is kind of what a typical writer show might be like.
Yeah, but even then, I think, like, there's a lot of things that are, like, unique to Kuga. Like, the groundedness is a big part of,
Yes,
I think, what makes it unique. And also just, like, the mystery around the Grongi is a big part of the show's identity in a way that's, like, assuming you're not, like, starting going in with the subs already for the Grongi, but
I got bad news about that.
uh, not a creative intent, not the broadcast intent.
Why did they do it like that in all the releases?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's interesting as, like, an option for, like, people who are rewatching, but there's a reason they did not sub it when the show aired. There was, like, a point. And even if it's like some people are like, oh well, the answer is easy to guess anyway. I'm like, well, it's the vibes. It's the mad important part. It's not like the answers per se. Even if you can guess. And I also think,
Right,
like, being able to guess a mystery easily is, or just being able to guess a mystery is not the same as just being told a mystery.
right.
Um, but yeah, Kuga, I'm a fan. Um,
Yeah, I think by the time we record next month's episode, so episode 3, I'll probably be done with
yeah,
Kuga, so I can come back with final thoughts.
nice. And then you can go to Agito, the sequel that isn't
Then I
actually a sequel.
Yes, then I am doing Agito.
Um, yeah. I do recommend checking out, if you do, when you do Agito, do the movie, because it's a good movie. Um,
Okay.
I guess, yeah, on my end, I've been up to, well, I also say, well, usually what the stuff I've been up to on Ultra Q, so I won't get into too much details here, I guess, but obviously I've been Michika's going, and that's peak fiction. This week my girl had her focus episode.
I haven't seen this week's episode yet. That's my post pod reward.
Then
So
I'm
like,
not.
yeah.
I will be quiet. I will not reveal anything.
Thank
Maybe we
you.
can talk about it later.
Yes.
I'm glad I didn't. I was being trepidatious just in case. But also, I also watched this week. Earlier today, watched the first episode of the new Super Sentai, #1 Sentai Gozyuger.
How was that?
Fucking bonkers. I'm ready. I'm hooked. I've been watching Sentai consistently since the pandemic, basically. I've been, like, on it. I had this thing before the pandemic where I was like, for whatever reason, Sentai was kind of, like, on and off with me. Like, some years I'd be like, I am into this season, and then I'll fall behind, but eventually catch up and go, that was good. And other seasons I'd be like, I don't like this, and drop it halfway through. Before I was in 2020 onwards, I was just like, I like all of these, and I've been able to keep up with it. I've been slowly trying to pick away at older Sentai seasons as well. And I feel like
Let's
I've been getting a lot more
go.
out of Sentai in recent years than Modern Rider.
Yes,
Well,
it
do you start?
seems to be. It seems to be general consensus, to my understanding, that they have not made a good writer since Build or something.
Yeah, I mean, like on the writer side, I watched Zero One and I was all right. Um, this is Ray Walk
Yes,
that I also saw. I saw Build. I saw Go, which is I didn't care for it. But Zero One was all right. I dropped Saber. I dropped Revice. Um, I watched Geats, and it was okay. But there is a
yes.
cool frogman in that show that who I like
Uh,
and who poisoned my brain.
I,
Um,
notice how often you are saying that was okay and not that one was good.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, the battle where Geats shushes is pretty good though. But and then I watched like one episode of Gotcha and then never watched it. And everyone was like, I don't know about this one. I'm like, well, we'll see. That said, Gozyuger. I will say just quick rapid fire thoughts on the recent era of Sentai. I watched Cure Major 2020. Thought it was like, oh, this is a traditional show, but I like it. It's good and fun. And then they made Zenkaiger, which is the previous anniversary show, because there's also an anniversary show. And Zenkaiger is like, damn, this is one of my favorite Toku shows. It's my favorite Sentai season still. Wonderful. Then we got Dawn Brothers, bonkers and great.
Yeah,
Kinoger.
I remember when Dawn Brothers was airing every week. It feels like it really broke like Toku Twitter containment or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, it was a good time. King Oger was pretty ambitious and cool, and then last year's Boom Booger I talked about in the Ultra that dropped today as of recording. Um, yeah, it's just like a more back to basics show, but still pretty enjoyable. And this one's going back to being bananas with Gojuzer. It seems where it's just like you got um like a lone wolf protagonist. He seems like competent, but he's also like a loser. And he's like, oh, I'm an outcast. And then he gets dragged into the pan-dimensional Ranger War, I guess. I don't know what's going on. There's a really sick mech fight, and then he transforms, and yeah, it's looking bonkers. The writer is Akiko Inoue, so it's Toshiki Inoue's daughter. I've heard that she wrote a lot of the episodes people like from Gotchard, and this is her first time being head writer for a show, so I'm curious to see what her creative voice is.
Yeah,
But so far I'm like, damn.
interesting.
Yeah, so far I'm like, damn, this is sauce. There's good mecha stuff. It's bonkers. They do a thing with like a returning actor that subverts your expectations and is really fun in a way that I liked. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. This is gonna be a good year for Sentai. I gotta catch up on Gav, which is the current Conrad show, because that was actually good. I was lucky. I didn't expect Gav to be the current Conrad show to be good in this era, especially when it's the candy themed one. But somehow they were cooking.
Let's go.
But I gotta catch up on it. I spent a bunch of time. I've been busy as shit.
Understandable. Happens.
Which means I'm gonna make the most of recording this podcast. And yeah, I guess if that's been us, we can transition to the portal to Shell.
Let's go.
right, so we are entering the Gamera zone.
The Gamera Zone.
So this is technically your second kaiju movie. To confirm, you said I think you said
Yeah.
off mic to me. The first was the original Godzilla, right? Specifically.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I guess before we get into the movie itself, I got some production history, if you like.
Yeah, well, let's go. I did not do any research
Sim-
on that, so you get to tell me.
yeah. Well, this is kind of my bit on the main podcast. Which maybe you might have noticed if you noticed that I did like a half-hour solo episode of me just doing that. For the 40 years leading up to this movie, for some reason, I got brain worms. So you consider this like the sequel to that. Go listen to that if you want like some background on like some, and by some I mean like one of the major players in the story and like the foundations of this company. Specifically in the weirdness of World War II, Imperial Japan politics. But anyway, Dai Studios, they make movies. And when we left off last time in episode 0, they've been making strides with special effects, making some big epics. And meanwhile, it's been like a decade since the original Godzilla hit the scene, and Toho has been basically uncontested as they keep pumping this shit out. Would you like a list of all of the movies leading up to Gamera's release that were Toho Kaiju movies?
Go for it. Give me the scale.
Godzilla 1954, Godzilla Raids Again 1955, Rodan 1956, The Mysterians 1957, Varan the Unbelievable 1958, Mothra 1961, Gorath 1962, Godzilla vs. King Kong 1962, Atragon 1963, Mothra vs. Godzilla 1964, Dagora also 1964, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster also 1964, and in the same year the Gamera releases in 1965 we got both Frankenstein vs. Baragon, not because of the Baragon, who we're going to talk about next episode, and Invasion of the Astro Monsters.
Yeah, that is
Yeah,
that is a lot. That's like
it.
you know, that's like the way people talk about like Marvel movies or whatever today.
Yeah. Let me tell you, some of these aren't good. A whole lot of them are, but like fucking Varan and Gorath, get the fuck out of here. Garbage movies.
When you make like one
You can
or
hear about
two a
some of
year,
those.
when you make one or two a year, you're bound to have a couple of stinkers.
Honestly, it's kind of impressive the track record they have, but I guess there's also an era where you could just make a movie in that time period. Kind of like with games, where it's like, oh yeah, you could make a game. Like obviously there was like crunch and bad labor conditions that led to it, but also like you could theoretically make these on a short time scale. Meanwhile, the current era is we still got the same crunch, but it still takes 7 years for some reason, and it looks bad.
Basically.
Yeah, but it is kind of crazy that they didn't this long without basically uncontested, and I assume some of that just like maybe it has to do with the fact that like, the special effects work by like AG Subarai's team was like so like impressive that it was like, can we even? Is there a point in trying? And one guy thought it was, and of course is our good friend Masaichi Nagata, known paragon of virtue and with a small ego. He's like, yeah, hey, us at Dai, we've been working on our special effects stuff. We gotta do our own. We gotta take a crack at it. Allegedly, the mission statement was not to compete with Godzilla and take his throne, but to create something that could coexist with him. And I have no idea if that's just like a thing they say retroactively, because everyone likes to reinvent their own histories after the fact.
Right. It would be very embarrassing to be like, oh, we want to take the throne. Did not take the throne.
I mean, it's a hard throne to take.
For sure.
Now, originally the plan was to do the movie Giant Sea Demon Dakora, which is a movie about a giant octopus. However, there were issues with filming a live octopus on set, which apparently they wanted to use, so it fell through. Won't be the first time
that
the
would
Kaiju
have
movie used
been
a live
nuts.
octopus. Well, if you watch King Conqueror's Godzilla, they use a live octopus in that one too, as a kaiju.
That's really
it's not the
nuts.
first time. So clearly after that fell through, they would do something normal for the next idea, right? Maybe something tested. Do you think?
I don't have enough genre context to know how tested a big fucking turtle is.
Well, before we get there, the next idea, championed by Nagata, was Giant Horde Beast Nezera. It was a kaiju movie that was not just influenced by Godzilla, but also by Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds. With the premise being that a swarm of giant rats would attack a city.
Wait, no, this sounds incredible. Why didn't they make this one?
Well, we'll get to that. The director on this one was Noriaki Yuasa, with special effects director being Yonesaburo Tsujiki, who is a veteran at this point. And it's sort of like a veteran of the special effects department at Dai. But Yuasa, this was his second movie as director, with his first being the musical comedy film If You're Happy, Clap Your Hands, which was a complete flop. And there seems to be a bunch of reasons, but both because he was new and made a flop, and also it seems like his dad was an established person, so it feels like, oh, you got your job because you're a nepo baby. There's a bunch of a bunch of the people at Dai look down at Yuasa. And
right.
Because of that, and the fact that a lot of the more established directors were turning up their nose, oh, we're not gonna make a fucking dumb baby poo poo kaiju movie. Yuasa was basically the only guy that was left the bag. He's like, oh, you're the rookie, and you're not very liked by anyone, so we're just gonna give you the movie that no one wants to do because they think it's dumb and poo poo. It also seemed like the special effects department didn't seem to get along well with the more established drama side, live action filming. And I think part of that is I think I read that there's a lot more of the young people in the fresh blood in the special effects department compared to the more old farts, the dinosaurs, and the the guys who are doing, oh, we're doing real cinema here.
Right.
As for Nezera itself, the movie, they tried different approaches to the rats. They did stop motion, or some degrees of suit motion, and even remote control, but none of these seemed to work. So they decided the next best thing was to let me know if this is a bad idea. They tried live rats and had them run around the miniature city set.
That went so well that this is the film that launched a franchise.
And the rats were a bit wild and maybe flea infested, and maybe the health department had to shut them down. And also Suzuki's own studio wasn't dead. So it's a bit of a disaster. Also, it seems like there was I guess because everyone needs to mythologize their own history, there was a 2020 movie that's sort of a biopic about that called I forgot the name, but I gotta look it up. I'm making editing work for myself now. It's called Nezera 1964. It's a movie about the making of this movie that failed, which could be a fun watch someday. Maybe it could be a bonus episode.
Oh yeah.
But yeah. Basically, Nagata was sunk cost fallacy. We've been making a big fuss about how we're gonna make our own kaiju movie, and we gotta make one. So we're gonna make one still. And Yuasa's like, okay, boss, I don't have a position to say no. I guess I'm still stuck making a kaiju movie. In this part, we get to the main event, more or less, with conflicting origins of how we got to this turtle guy. So one story that seems to be the one pushed forward by a screenwriter Nissan Takahashi was Nagata was on a plane trip from the U.S. and he saw a cloud in the shape of a turtle while on the plane, and then he got back to his staff in Japan and was like, "Oh, we make this movie with the flying turtle." And meanwhile, Yuasa says, "Well, I just assumed, I think Takahashi was the one who made Gamera myself personally, and also, you know, even if it was Nagata who came in the pitch, he's like Takahashi was the one who took Big Turtle and like made it into an actual idea, and not just like a post-it note. Um, that's Yuasa's perspective. And then there's a third story by a different guy, not even at Dai, called Tomio Saikasu, who was a student of Eiji Saraiba and would later found the company P Productions, which go on to make the giant hero show Spectre Man. It says, "Oh, I had an idea for a turtle kaiju and I pitched it in a demo reel to Kadae." So clearly they got the idea from me. And this is one of the things where we'll never actually know. The tentative name was Fire-Eating Turtle Attacks Tokyo, but eventually they came on Gamera because, Kame means turtle.
Right.
So yeah, Yuasa inherited his direct role from Nezura, so basically like they just shifted over. And so even though he was like, executives and stuff would belittle him, it's like, oh, you're a loser and a dweeb and a nepo baby. Yeah. He went out of his way to like learn special effects and work collaboratively with Suzuki on the movie. Dai seems to have intentionally not reached out to Eiji Sakurai for help. At this time, Eiji had his own. He's like, still like known as like involved with the Toho movies, but at this point he had his own company, Super Eye Productions, who they were at work on Ultra Q at the moment. So he's doing a bit of like contract work for different companies and also his own shit. But Dai seems to have like intentionally not reached out, either like out of pride or something. Maybe it was something about the 600 companies agreement, because obviously Eiji's still like, I guess, seen as a Toho guy. And the 6 companies agreement would have been like, well, you can't poach people like that. Nagata at least seemed to probably take the pride approach himself, just like, this is the Dai production. We want to use Dai's resources and prove we can do it without actually like reaching across the aisle. We don't want to like, if we're going to compete with Toho, we don't necessarily like, we gotta go to your guy. We don't want to get Toho's guy to like beat Toho with their own game, basically, because then it's like cheating.
Right.
And he basically didn't even do it even when like production hit several bro bumps. It was like, maybe we do need to reach for help, and they didn't not need to do that. But it also mean the production team had to learn a lot of things on their own, and were conscious of trying to make Gamera different. Just because, like, well, we're not getting the same guys, so we may as well do our own thing. And this to mean that Nagata, true to himself, seemed to have boasted about Dai being able to pull off without surprise assistance. I do think, to some degree, the degree of not cross-pollination is maybe exaggerated, because I definitely see some names in common between, like, Ultraman staff and Gamera staff. Like, definitely some guys coming over, at the very least. Sometimes. And I'm pretty sure that, like, yeah. Also, Yuasa seemed to have, like, maybe with some connections, even, like, went over to, like, the Toho Super Eye studio. Was like, hey, can I learn from you guys a bit? And that Eiji was like, yeah, sure. So, maybe the degree is all fake. Speaking of which, though, the Gamera suit itself was made by Masao Yagi. Masao was a son and nephew of Kenju and Yasue Yagi, respectively. The two of them were known as the Yagi brothers and were deeply involved with the modeling side of production on Toho's kaiju movies. And Masao himself previously worked part-time as assistant sculptor under Tezu Toshimitsu on the original Godzilla. So basically, Masao was just in the family business of making kaiju. After Gamera's release, he and another one of the movie special effects crew, Keizo Murase, found their own company, Extract Productions. Some of those names might be familiar to you if you listen to the Ultraman show, because they definitely come up. Decision to make this movie in black and white was made for a bunch of pragmatic reasons, and it was something pushed forward by Suzuki specifically, it seems. Dai was going through a bit of financial trouble at the time, so budgetary concerns, as well as a lack of personnel on set, were kind of like a reason to make it go for like something black and white, along with the fact like the movie didn't have the confidence of the higher ups, which probably itself was a reason for the limited budget and personnel. But yeah, all that basically meant like going for black and white instead of full color production meant cheaper and a safer bet. It also probably didn't help. It's like the first time they're doing this, so with all the risks, it was like, oh, we shouldn't do that. In spite of the fact that like Warning from Space was like Dai already put out the first sci-fi color film in Japan But then they get the Whale God a few years previous, and that's like also black and white film. So Whale God being like more directly a predecessor to Gamera in terms of being like a kaiju-ish thing, even if it's a whale. I've seen all those movies by now, which is funny. The budget issues and tight schedule mean there were a lot of production issues like faulty equipment and props, insufficient electricity, and then all of the ice for the Arctic scenes melted and flooded the studio, and they had to delay filming while the flooding got taken care of. So it's a bit of a rough time.
That's wild.
Yeah, because they got like actual like ice for the Arctic scenes.
Right.
And then
I will say I'm kind of glad they shot the thing in black and white. It gives it this like really impeccable vibe.
Yeah, I mean it's cool. I mean it's a good looking black and white movie for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, Gamera was released November 27th, 1965. There was some internal reception that Gamera is like a cheaper knockoff to Godzilla, and it being black and white when Godzilla was already in full color at this point. Probably didn't help. However, Nagata himself seemed to like the movie, and more importantly, in that being a major box office success, and even pulled Dai from the brink of potential financial ruin. Also ended up being popular with kids, which is actually something the creative staff, including Nagata and Yuasa, were aiming for. And with that, Gamera had made a splash, and even opened the floodgates for maybe other kaiju stuff from other companies to get made. And obviously this means we didn't immediately greenlight a sequel. And to be continued in the next podcast. And yeah, that's production history.
Yeah. I kind of wish they made the Rats movie, but we did get Gamera, so probably worth it.
Yeah. Well, Health Hazard is probably not ideal.
That's true.
But in any case, before we get to talking to the movie, because I presume we might just like talk through it linearly. I skimmed through it this morning because I watched it in December because I was like, I'm gonna do this myself, and then we had agreed to this. So I skimmed through it.
Okay, what are you doing for the summaries? You've kept it in good.
Yeah. So you said like I didn't want to do like a full summary after the production history spiel, like the way we do on All Street, because like usually what happens in All Street is I do the production history stuff, and then Red gives the summary, which means I'm not the one talking for like half an hour. Well, I do talk a lot, but there's a breakup of things. I didn't want to talk. So you suggested, you do like a 5-sentence summary was what your suggestion.
Yes, the podcasting classic, I think.
And then I decided to get cheeky with it, and I looked things up, and so there's a form of Japanese poem called a tanka. That's 5 lines. And structure is like a haiku, but if you added 2 lines, there are 7 syllables at the end. So it's 5, 7, 5, 7, 7.
All right.
So I'm doing that for the summaries for this podcast.
Let's go. You're crafting some poetry.
Yeah. Shall I give the poem for this movie?
Go for it.
Okay. This is a story of Gamera, the giant monster. Turtle freed from ice. Saved the boy but feeds on fire. Men's planets can't stop him. Who foresaw his shell in flight? Off to Mars for all our sakes.
That is indeed what happens with Gamera.
It is what happens in this movie. So let me pull up my notes from for some reason I did the most disorganized Google Doc. Just have a frame of reference.
I probably should have done notes, but I was like, I'm watching these 2 days before we record. I don't need to do.
It's fine. I'm using it just like as a reference.
Right.
But we begin with some framing. We got a research team going to the Arctic to an Inuit village. movie for the record does use the E slur, but at the times, and it's the Cold War. And so we got
the fact that it's the Cold War is like oddly important to the movie's thematics in a way that I did not expect.
Yeah, so we got like the main character I think is Dr. Hideka, and he's like a I guess kind of anthropologist guy who's like visiting this Inuit village, and he's like, hey, I'm checking your cultural touchstone to investigate this like thing, and it's like his assistant Kyoko is there, and also the one of the photographers on the boat called Aoyagi is also there, and they're chilling until like some weird fuck off planes come by and drop nukes or something.
Yes, interestingly, they never specify what nation the plane is from, I'm assuming, because they didn't want to piss anybody off.
Yeah, though whenever I read summaries, it's like, presumably the Soviet Union. I'm like, well, a Westerner did write this. Thank you, commentary. But yeah, you got the awakening of the giant turtle, which it just fucking blows up the boat and everyone on it. The name of the boat is important, but what is important is like everyone except for like the 3 people in the village are basically wiped off the earth, and the Inuit are like, oh, it's the devil's emissary, check this cool rock we have that's like describing the myth of this turtle, and they're like, damn, fucked up. And then they give a conference in New York on TV. But yeah, how'd you feel about this as an intro to the movie?
I kind of liked it. It's weirdly
I thought it was pretty
somber.
Good. Yeah.
It's got this interesting vibe to it. It's very it until Gamera shows up, you could tell me that this is not a kaiju movie.
Yeah. I will say it's definitely fall into that, like, I was gonna say 60s, but I fucking last year for whatever reason I watched the MonsterVerse movies, and it's also here too. So it does fall into the like kaiju movie thing where it's like, and then the Japanese scientists main character guys go visit the indigenous people somewhere, and stuff happens, which we'll get into for the next movie too.
Oh yeah, the next movie is so much worse about this.
Unfortunately, it's kind of just the era. Like it's like that in King Kong versus Godzilla, and in Mothra too. Those are also rough ones on that front.
Yes, I think compared to the next movie, I feel like the portrayal of the indigenous people is maybe a little less blatantly stereotyped.
Yeah. Unfortunately, because it's a Japanese movie, it's also like, oh, they get the actors who are Japanese to play these people, and not like actual like indigenous actors. So no, there's no Inuit movie. There's no like Inuit actors in this movie, obviously.
Right.
And it is also like, oh, why is the Inuit like? Why is the demon for these Inuit people something that's clearly a Japanese name?
That's a great question.
Obviously don't think about it. It's not that important.
It's a really interesting stylistic choice. They speak so much English in this movie, like English that is subtitled to the right.
Yeah, because the thing we didn't talk about is like when these. I guess part of the reason they're assuming that like it's the Soviet side is like because presumably there's like in the Inuit live in North America. It's like Canada here. So presumably it's like American Air Force people being made aware of these mysterious planes, and so it's like, oh, it's the well, presumably it's the enemy who's doing it, even if we don't identify them. But yeah, you do get like the U.S. Air Force speaking in English, like, oh, we got a plane, we gotta stop them, and then you got like the, the chain of command going through like the protocols kind of thing. They don't speak English well, even though they are like white guys, but it is a fun twist. And yeah, the professor also speaks to the Inuit chief in English as well. I think also is like, this will be the mystery they'll be unravel later, where they're like, damn, is this rock showing the turtle swimming? Well, it must be. It's a turtle, right? We'll get to that.
I'll get to that.
And yeah, so they give it like so Dr. Hidaka gives like talks in New York talk show, and says like, yeah, so Atlantis was in the Arctic Circle, and there was a turtle there, but then a bomb woke it up, but probably the turtle died from radiation poisoning, so it's fine.
We're good. We're Gucci.
And then after that we get like the first shot of we get a shot of like there's a weird UFO type thing in the sky, and like a villager in Japan is like, damn, ghosts. I'm seeing some shit, and carries on with his day. But everyone's like, oh man, that's a cool UFO, and now, well, the turtle's dead, so now the hot topic of the day is the UFO. Dramatic irony, because we know it's not spoilers. It's the turtle. It's still the turtle. But you get them on the boat, get them on the plane. Hidaka and Kyoko are just kind of like talking about like, yeah, Gamera's dead. Maybe it's for the best. Rip to like everyone on the boat who died though.
Yes, that was a weirdly somber scene where it's like, oh, we all picked lots to see who was gonna go take the photos. I'm only alive because of the lots.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, it does go in a weird direction where Aoki's like, oh, and you're my guardian angel, Kyoko, because of you, I lived. And then she's immediately weirded out by it, like I am. I'm like, please, dude.
Yeah, he's got to calm down a little bit.
But yeah, basically, like, Aoki drew straws and was the one who got to go, and because of that, he's alive, and it's a little, yeah, he got some of that survivor skill going on there. At this point, we can meet the child hero of the movie, whose name is Toshio, because we get Toshio's sister talking to his teacher, and his teacher's like, yeah, he's really into turtles a lot. It's a problem actually, and so because Toshio seems to be like, their dad is a single dad, and so the mom has the sister has to take the role of mom basically. And so they're like, well, we can't have him transfer because he's a bad student for the turtles, because we moved all over the country, now we're over here in Hokkaido, so you gotta take care of the turtle problem. And so then later that night, sister and dad were like, all right, we gotta fucking get rid of that turtle now.
It's so funny, the speech she gives. It's like, you have to cooperate with humans to live in society, not turtles.
Yeah. Also, funny enough, this I don't know the degree to which this is like a coincidence. It might be coincidence, but this just remind me of there's a really great early episode of Ultra Q, episode 6, which is also about a kid who is obsessed with turtles to like the chagrin of like everyone around him, and turtles somehow get him onto like this really bonkers journey through the course of an episode. And yeah, you should go watch Ultra Q. Definitely go watch that episode specifically of Ultra Q, but go watch Ultra Q in general. It was like the our second podcast, and we got to the episode, and it's like, this is the fucking incredible TV show. But yeah. So yeah, Toshio is like scolded by his family, and he's like, well, I gotta put my turtle Chibi out to sea. Well, he leaves him by the cliff, and he's just like, oh man, my best friend Chibi, I have to leave him. And he just kind of like lays down for a bit, and then Gamera shows up, and like Toshio's like, oh man, Chibi, you got so big.
Yes, it was interesting watching people online be like, the original film Gamera implies that Gamera might in fact be the Chibi, be the turtle Chibi, and it's like, no, it doesn't. He's a kid. Also, Gamera exists before Chibi. What?
Yeah.
I don't understand how you watch this movie and you get to that misread.
Yeah, and I guess I could make the argument of like, oh, you could believe it if you wanted to, but it does feel like I don't read it that way rationally.
Yeah.
But also like I think maybe also some people are like probably too harsh on Toshio as a character because they don't like child characters. And meanwhile, I'm like, yeah, there's just like child characters of this era are just like this, and you just gotta take it with the genre conventions.
I thought, okay, so, I don't really have these, like, genre conventions in my mind. I thought Toshio was fine.
Okay, well, that's good. I didn't have a problem with either. I think I just, like, part of it is like I have, like, the Arrow Blu-rays, and they have, like, some commentaries and, like, like, they basically got some, like, quote-unquote experts, I guess, like, people who in the West have done extensive work talking about these movies as opposed to like getting the people who made the movies on it, and like some of them have like some opinions on Toshio where I'm like, well, you are a US fan of a certain age, and that shows.
What did they say about him?
I think it was supposed to go, oh, Toshio is a dumb kid and he's stupid. Something like that. I just remember that from the on the Arrow Blu-ray. There's something called like the August Ragone introduction to Gamera, because they did this guy who's a quote unquote kaiju scholar. He did like an intro for each of the movies, which is useful for like getting some broad production sides history, so I can write it down. But his editorializing is not necessarily what I value.
He's fine. He believes in the good of Gamera, and his belief is, I guess, vindicated.
Because what happens is like you get Gamera causing some damage. Toshio climbs up to a lighthouse and ends up, dangling from it because like damage happens. But then Gamera catches him, and it's like, oh. Could Gamera be nice? Question mark. Maybe the future episodes of the podcast will be dedicated to discovering this. But yeah, now Gamera's back, people are like, oh shit, the turtle's back. And meanwhile, I think it's like. Hidaka literally just enters the airport, and immediately someone comes up and was like, "Can we get you to Hokkaido immediately? Because there's a camera." While we're still in the airport, we'll just get you on a new flight, like now. We gotta get over there. Yeah, so I think it's a phone call. They go to a professor. But yeah, so because Chibi's also missing because he's a turtle who walks away. Toshio's like, well, this clearly means obviously that Chibi is Gamera, clearly. Um, Also, Aoyagi is insistent on being a tag-along. Um, that's his personality in this movie. Um, though I think I think the reason he gives is like, oh, by coincidence, I was also assigned to Hokkaido by my newspaper bosses. Um, uh, but at this point, we get like another big set piece as we get like Gamera up here attacking the geothermal plant, and GSDF, is here, and they're concocted a plan. We got the whole party here, and we're like, okay, how are we gonna beat Gamera? And I think they're like, well, we just got to give him a lot of electricity, more than an atomic bomb would heat him up. So yeah, basically this is where they try and put in a plan to like fry the shit up Gamera, and they find out it doesn't work because Gamera is a fire liker, an enjoyer.
Some might say that Gamera spits fire in more ways than
True.
one.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I think you'll see as you watch more kaiju movies, a lot of them are about like guys, especially guys have to do plans to do operations to solve these things.
Yes, we have not gotten there yet, but let me tell you, I did not fucking predict how they would resolve the situation in this movie.
Yeah.
It's fucking bonkers.
Yeah. So, yeah. I forget what I think there were like good special effects in this scene. How do you feel about the special effects so far at this point in the movie?
So I guess because I didn't really have a frame of reference, I just looked at all the stuff and I was like, "Whoa, this is so cool."
Yeah, I felt it was good too.
There's a big guy. He rages around.
Yeah. I feel like if I had to like look how to carefully do side by side, I can probably see where people are coming from, where they're like, oh yeah, presumably the Toho or Super Aya stuff is better, probably, but at the same time I'm like, well, when I'm watching the movie, it's like, it's fine, it works for me. And maybe some of it's because like I'm like, maybe an audience in like of the era would see things differently. But for me, when I'm like, oh, all of these are old and from the 60s, to me, like, the difference doesn't like stand out as much unless there's like one of these obviously shoddy. Like if something was obviously shoddy, I'd notice it, but if it's like, competently done all around, then I wouldn't make a difference to me necessarily.
Right, that makes sense.
But yeah, they basically try and like fry Gamera, but it doesn't actually work out. And so instead, it just eats the fire. That's the thing where we're like, okay, we need to take a different approach because heat is not going to work. And so they meet the Professor Murase, because we always got to have a weird professor guy. That's one thing that's important from like the lore of our pod on Ultra Q, is just like there was a weird professor guy there, with some weird bad vibes, and this guy had the same energy to me. He's just like, yeah, I'm gonna speak confidently out of my ass about things.
Right, okay, so what you're telling me is that the three staples of Toku storytelling are scientist guy who makes plans, small child, and weird scientist.
I think it's a kaiju staple.
Yes.
Maybe the child maybe is less necessary, as we'll see in the next movie. But there's always gotta be an operation. And like to the extent that like the formula of Ultraman is like, they have an entire branch of like military guys specifically to fight kaiju, and it's all about, oh, this is the operation to take care of the kaiju, and then eventually there's also Silverman. But yeah, like the thing about the professor is like, oh yeah, Plato wrote about fire breathing turtles, and it's like, well, okay.
Yes. When I saw that line, I really had to resist bursting out
Yeah.
laughing.
And I assume that it makes sense, maybe in the context of you talking about, oh, the turtle from Atlantis, sure. But still, it's like it's kind of like okay, sure. Um, and yeah, so like yeah, Gamera's just eating shit. It's going bigger and stronger. Um, they're like, maybe we should nuke it. And for some reason, Toshio shows up like, don't do that. And uh, Toshio is able to get an audience enough that they're like, well, maybe we shouldn't. Also, based on what we figured out, we probably would be like the opposite.
Really bad.
It'd be like
Yes.
yeah. Um,
Have we gotten to the part where Gamera is rampaging through the city part?
no, I think we're still at the power plant. I think you mentioned the city later.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Yeah.
I think this
That's
part
like
where
the next big set piece.
yeah. Well, the first they like doing the operation where they try and freeze him by flipping him over. And like they're like, hey, we have a special bomb, especially for freezing, and we have it ready to go. It's kind of introduced nonchalantly because like, oh, by the way, it just so happens GSDF has bombs for jungle warfare that we have on hand. Don't worry about it. Do not ask why and when this started, but we do have them. Why does the Japanese army need a special ice weapons for the jungle? Oh no, don't worry about that.
The Cold War is weird.
I was thinking about an earlier war when that would be relevant for the Japanese army. Not gonna lie. But yeah, so basically they do this thing where they like get Gamera to they basically like knock Gamera over with dynamite as it's kind of a hill, and then freeze bomb it, and it's like hell yeah, we're gonna freeze it, and then they kind of just like it slips on its back, and then everyone's just like weirdly cocky and laughs at it, like haha, Gamera's on its back and get up, ha ha ha, and then it starts spinning and flying, and it's like what?
Can you fucking imagine watching this when the film came out? You don't fucking know shit about Gamera. You don't know Gamera can fly, and then Gamera starts fucking flying.
Yeah, it looks really good too. Like whenever Gamera's in flight, it looks sick. They do the firework effects, I think, really good.
Yes, and my internal reference for Gamera is that the Master Roshi in Dragon Ball is introduced riding around on Gamera.
Oh, I didn't even know that was a reference.
Yeah, I'm 99% sure it's a reference.
That probably makes sense though. I mean, Chi Chi is like introduced herself as an Ultraman 7 reference, so you know.
Right.
But yeah, they're like, oh, the UFO was also Gamera. Oops. And at this point where they kind of realize, oh, Gamera can fly, so this is not like water on the rock; it's like clouds, which is fun. Also, we get like just an aside where like the farmer who like saw Gamera was like, oh shit, I saw Gamera. Damn, that's crazy. And his wife's like, yeah, shit's wild, I guess. It's not really relevant, but it's just a nice aside that's character, I think, to the movie.
Yeah, definitely.
And at this point, we kind of move to like the city is in Tokyo as like the main center point of the movie, where Toshio and his sister are like going to visit the professor at the office, and for whatever reason, Toshio is really insistent on bringing like specifically the rocks that he built as the home for Chibi with him.
He thinks they're gonna attract Gamera, I guess.
Yeah, he's like, listen, they're my memento to remember my best friend in the whole world.
Who is now huge.
I think, and you are a bad person if you try and separate me from them. I need to carry these rocks with me. And yeah, so basically it's like they're visiting the professor, but the main reason they're here is like their town got fucked by Gamera, so they're like staying with their uncle in Tokyo for a while. And there's like we get some interesting like drip feeding where it's like his uncle is the fishmonger, and we get hearing like, oh, the fish market's like been going quiet because like all the fish are like dying, or like the fish aren't biting, and like, no, that's weird. Why is there's no fish in Tokyo Bay? I wonder why could that be. And then we just get like a good encapsulation of kid bullshit where like Toshio's cousin gets mad at Toshio for like not wanting to show him the rocks, so he goes and throws out the rocks into the ocean. And it's like, damn, kids just suck sometimes.
Yeah.
And this plot point is not followed up upon. They just go to bed and sleep.
Yeah, just like I love how his like sister's like, oh, maybe it's a good thing Toshio's stones got thrown away. And it's like, come on.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like they're inconvenient, but also I don't know if this like the best way should have happened. Like, I think probably realistically he should have like let go of them on his own terms, not keep them forever. But having them be thrown out by his cousin is crazy. But kids are just like this. Like, it's not like the movie is saying, this is a normal thing that should have happened. But yeah, there's yeah, we get like think about Gamera. People are like, damn, what are we gonna do? And we get like people at the fish market just chill around like a barrel fire. And like there's just weird shit happening in Tokyo Bay, and everyone's like, well, I think now is the time to put a pause in the Gold War to deal with this giant turtle. So they bring all the world's scientists, including the U.S. and the USSR, all coming over to Japan to deal with this turtle. To do the Z plan. And I'm allowed to say that because I'm Canadian and you live in the UK and we don't have any Americans on this podcast.
That's true.
And notably, what the Z plan actually is a reveal at the very end of the movie, because we're just given it and everyone's like, yeah, that sounds good, and we don't actually know what it is until like the final shot, basically.
It's so nuts.
It's wild. But yeah, everyone's like, yeah, we believe in the science of this plan, which is a thing you'll find, I think, in a lot of also in this kind of media in this era, is just like a belief in science as an ontological thing to believe in.
Yeah, it's almost like more than science. This is like I kind of read the like thematics of this movie as being about how we've got to let the Cold War go and embrace like international cooperation to live in the world.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's a common thing where it's like, oh, the world has to unite. If the world has to unite because there's bigger threats, and presumably in the modern day that'd be climate change. But like, and back in the day, I'm sure like, well, I mean, remember, Godzilla was a nuclear metaphor, so like having kaiju as a nuclear metaphor, when it's like, oh well, we should cooperate instead of nuclear war. That's like an obvious, like, allegory you could go to, basically.
Right.
And especially because the Gamera itself is born out of the ice from a nuclear bombing, then like that makes sense. And it's like playing in the same space.
In a way, it's maybe even more blatant about it than Godzilla.
Yeah. Yeah. But then Gamera just shows up at an airport and starts smacking shit. This is where we get like the big set piece of Gamera attacking Tokyo at night, complete with people dancing at the club, and everyone's like, "Oh, guys, Gamera's coming! We gotta get out of here!" And like, "Fuck off, Gamera! What's that shit? Don't tell us." and then the Gamera breaks through the door, through the wall.
Oh, that was like the most fucking like kids these days scene I've
it's
seen
like
in
it's
a
some real
little
like
bit.
it's got some like It's funny when it's like, oh, the adults make something that's clearly for like the young kids and then throw shots at teenagers.
Yes, it's like teenagers suck because they don't take the world seriously.
Yeah.
Adults suck because of the Cold War, but they can theoretically be made good. And half of small children are relentlessly cruel bullies.
I think the conclusion is that we live in a society.
Exactly.
But yeah, like we get fucking Tokyo Tower get fucking destroyed. Not the first kaiju movie to do this. Mothra also does this, but I assume once Tokyo Tower is a thing they can put in their movies as a thing, as because I think it's like it got built in the 50s, so it's still relatively new, but big landmark they can use for fuck off set pieces.
Right.
And it's I think we get. I'm just like perusing my notes just to keep track, but I'm being reminded of things like, oh, Toshio seeing all the havoc and destruction Gamera's doing. He's like, oh, Gamera, don't do anything bad. And I think it's late for that. I think the ship. I think we passed the Rubicon. I think people are dead already.
Toshio treats Gamera the way that all the folks on social media treat their favorite mentally ill anime girlie.
Yeah. Like Soyo, who did nothing wrong.
Yes.
That pause was because I was picking what I do for the second half of that statement because I was like, well, but yeah,
they should make a kaiju movie about Soyo.
They should. So the good thing about having you here is because you continue to feed to the weird importance Maigo has to the podcast lore on this feed for some reason.
So realistically, Anon is the kaiju.
You just have to think about instead of a band, it's like a kaiju task force or a Sentai squad. Just reshape the calibration.
Deal with Anon.
It becomes the Rider War though. Fucking Riki ass. But yeah. Everyone turns to Daka, everyone just kind of assumes he's the Gamera expert because he saw him twice.
Which, to be fair, that's more than most people who have seen him.
He's like, well, I guess
times.
I have survived encounters with him more than most people, and I'm also a scientist. But yeah, so yeah, they're like we gotta set the Z-Motion plan. A's on an island away from Tokyo. So what we gotta do is we need to set things up. So for now we need to keep Gamera in a place where it's gonna cause the least damage possible, and then bring it to the island. And I think it's a cool way of doing this. Where we are gonna fucking keep in Tokyo Bay by just throwing oil at it. So it stays chomping. It's slurping. It's keeping its petroleum tummy fill, and that way it won't go on a rampage. And we got this whole shit of the dock workers throwing entire trains of gasoline at it, and then it's picking up its mouth. And Toshio just hops on it for some reason, and some guy is like, "Bro, what the fuck are you doing? No." But yeah, I like the little miniature trains here with the Gamera. I like that. It was pretty good.
Same.
Yeah.
Something I think is interesting is that to sort of uh, to sort of what's the word? To like iterate on Toshio's vision that Gamera is fundamentally good. They make it like very clear that Gamera is not like strictly malicious. Gamera is just driven by hunger.
Yeah, he's just a guy. He's like a he's just trying to live his life, and people are in the way. What's wrong with
Yes.
these people? Jeez. Um, but yeah, Toshio has to get carried away by like guys while fucking Gamera is like being fed up with a gas. But thankfully the plan's ready. And I have to lure it away. Um, though everyone still like converges on the island. Uh, Aoki is told to leave once again because media. Like they're not really happy with him here being in media and all this military stuff. But like, uh, the professor I should remember his name again. Hidaka was like, yeah, he's my guy. It's fine. Until they basically this is the limit point. So he's like, sits away. Asterisk. We'll get back to that. Meanwhile, Toshio is like, yeah, I'm gonna sneak on the boat. So I can go to the fucking island where they're gonna bring Gamera. And then the professor is on the boat, and then the sister goes, "Hey, have you seen my brother?" And he's like, "No, but it's probably fine." And then they find on the island they find Toshio immediately, and they're like, "Well, bro, I guess you're here now." And so they're like, "Well, we want to do the plan. We're gonna light a trail of oil to the island, so Gamera comes to the island, which is very sick." And also they're worried about it. At the same time, there's a typhoon coming. I was like, well, this could spoil our plans. And spoilers, it does. Yeah, it basically, yeah, they set like an oil drum string, and that's kind of how they do the big trail. And then they basically almost get Gamera to the island, but then the flames go out because of the typhoon, and then it's like, well, do we use up the oil for the Z plan, or does that mean the plan's gonna fall apart? Until Aoki's like, I'm gonna just start. Well, first of all, I snuck on as a laborer. It's like, well, I'm gonna just start burning things on fire, and I should do it. Just wild.
That was a pretty wild sequence.
Yeah. I was like, obviously, I think the whole plan with oh, we're gonna light the trail of flame, bring it to the island, pretty cool. But also, how are they gonna get out of this one with the typhoon? But he just starts blowing shit up, and then he's like, "Oh, what are you doing? Are you crazy?" He's like, "Listen, I'm actually very sane." And they was like, "Shit, let's do what he's doing. Let's go along with this plan. Let's start blowing shit up." But what actually happens, very coincidentally, the volcano erupts, and that's what keeps Gamera out. And then we get to the final scene of the movie, where everyone's on the island now. The professor and the sister are on the island. And Toshi's like, "Yeah, come and watch the plan in action." Because I think somehow Toshi was like, "No, I hate this plan," and then he was told. Maybe he was told the plan later, and I was like, "Okay, it's fine, actually."
Yeah, all right. Do you think Toshio becomes a normal child growing up, or do you think this is a life-changing experience?
I think this has to shape him as a person.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, because I guess there's the bit at the end where he's like, "This has inspired me to become a scientist like you," and in the logic of fiction, that means he will become a scientist.
Yes. And yeah, we get through we see these all the science hallways, and we get it's a ring of torches in a pit, and we get some cool movement of machinery and studs. And would you like to do the honors? Tell everyone what the Z plan is?
The said plan is to send Gamera to Mars,
Get
where
your
he can just live his life
yeah.
and not
Get your ass to
hurt
Mars.
anybody.
Really said get your ass to Mars to Gamera.
They really did.
Yeah, they get Gamera into like the little the pit, and then it's like slurp, put him in a canister, and he's launched off into space, and everyone's like, "Yeah, Hidaka, you did it." And then she's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna become a scientist." And then Hidaka says to Kyoko, "Hey, you're still in this movie. I think you should take a break from work and go date Aoyagi." And I'm like, "That's insane."
That's how they be doing women in big budget mainstream films at this time.
It's the 60s. Yeah, yeah, is she's like in this movie, but not really. Like most of her good scenes are in the first half, because she doesn't have much weight. She doesn't have much voice when it comes to the actual operations.
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah. That was the first Gamer movie. How'd you think? What'd you think of it?
I thought it was pretty good. It's like weirdly somber at times. It has a nice theme. The characters are likable enough. And
Yeah,
like Gamera's in the movie doing Gamera stuff. I think Gamera is super duper cute. As
yeah.
I made clear to you in
I
DMs.
like that was like the first thing you said about starting the movie. Is like, yeah, I like Gamera's cute.
It's got some good destruction. If I didn't know that Gamera could fly, that shit would go wild.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I'm like, I do wonder like how much, like if you're like going to the movie for the first time in 1965, I do wonder how much that's like, how much that was like obvious versus how much is that's like a mystery.
right.
Because that's actually interesting with Rodan, where it's like, you go into movie Rodan these days and you know who Rodan is, but when you watch the movie in the year of release, you didn't know who Rodan was, and there's actually like, it takes a long time for Rodan to show up because there's a whole other like plot building up to Rodan, like in a mystery where there's like, damn, there's this weird mining town being attacked by giant caterpillars. What's up with that? And it's cool. Um, like and like the fact that like, I mean, it's like the Soylent Green thing, where like everyone knows Soylent Green from the twist and not the plot of the movie. And so, like, if you go back and watch the movie, and it's like, oh, that was a reveal at the end of the movie. That is a weird thing, right? Um,
Right.
as opposed to if you watched the movie at the time and you didn't know, then it's like, oh, maybe this was a bigger reveal. Um, but but yeah, I agree. I think it's been a while since I've seen like the contemporaries as far on the Toho side. But it looks good, I think. I mean, and I'm also watching like high definition Blu-ray and stuff, so it helps
Yep.
remastering. Yeah, I think the miniatures are good. I think the camera suit looks it's pretty good for the time. Obviously there's like a more elaborate suits contemporaneous, but I think Gamera's like a lovable guy.
Yeah.
This
Not to
is good.
jump ahead, but I was pretty mixed on the next film we're talking about, which made me appreciate Gamera 1 more, even, because that was just like a
Interesting.
straight up, just a plain good time. Not to say the
Yeah,
next
I
movie
mean, I
isn't
think
a good time, but we'll
yeah.
get there. We'll get there.
Spoilers for next podcast. But yeah. Um, there's yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. I think this movie has a good mix of things. Um, and it does. I think it is. It's probably reasonable to say, oh, it's like it's doing the formula because it is trying to get like it's not necessarily like a major innovator, but I think it's executing well.
Yeah,
just because someone's like
definitely.
seen a bunch of these. Um,
Yeah, somebody who's seen one of these, I'm like, this was a
yeah,
good second one to watch.
yeah, and it's obviously the tone's a bit different from Godzilla, the original. Um,
It's less different than I
um,
thought it would be. Like,
yeah,
it's definitely different, but less.
the ending's very different.
Yeah, oh, yes,
Where
absolutely.
you get like the somberness of like Serizawa taking his own life with the oxygen destroyer, versus this one where it's like just get your ass to Mars.
Get Your Ass to Mars
I
is such a good ending, though.
it is it's funny. Um, it's just a wild ending, but it feels like you know it's yeah it's good. It's a good movie, I think, and I think I don't know I guess I can see why some people are like, oh yeah, it's a ripoff, but I also think it's like, well, it's clearly it blew up for a reason, like despite like the reservations. Um,
Right, definitely.
and I think like it showed like it could you can do one of these. You don't have to just be uh, Toho. You can do this, and that's cool. Um, I'm trying to think like this is like brushing up against Ultra Q, the show coming out, and like that was like a high budget, really expensive, like most expensive TV show in Japan at the time. Until it was immediately surpassed by Ultraman. Um, and like I don't, how would I compare the effects of those? Because it's also a black and white show, but also I guess I don't need to. But I'm just um, is very easy because it is like black and white movie from the year before Ultra Q came out. I guess technically it's like within the span of like a month and a bit. They're like if we're looking at the actual dates, they're on top of each other. It's like yeah, I feel like you could like comparable. I don't know. I guess I shouldn't be like trying to from memory try and compare such specs. I just like the movie looks good. It's a good fun movie. They did the thing. We got a franchise out of it. Um,
Yeah, definitely a good movie to start a franchise off of.
yeah. How do you feel about like Toshio's like a person in the cast, like his role, like how they wave in his stuff? Yeah, I'm
I,
supposed to
I,
just look at
I,
some of the
I thought,
notes. I think.
yeah, like I said when we talked a bit about Toshio and the Phantom, reception earlier, um, it's, I thought he was good. He's sad because cause he's in a not, cause he's in an awkward family situation, but he sees the good in Gamera, and, yeah, I also see the good in Gamera. I relate.
Yeah. Um.
I never found him particularly annoying because, like, yeah, I also like Gamera. That's
Yeah.
why I'm here.
I did ask that question because I had like because I watched this in December. I had like notes to myself about what I'd talk about when I presumably was going to record on a podcast on it, and it says like I have this note that I don't understand about Toshio. I was like, well, I should probably talk about this, but I don't know what.
Right.
But I do think the movie does a decent job. I think with its ensemble cast. Um, well, I say they serve the role in the story, but I do see like Hidaka as protagonist, scientist guy, Kyoko as woman, and Aoki as the fun guy. Um,
Yeah. That's
and
definitely what they are.
you know it's there's not as much there. Um, um, I would say if I was to compare this to Ultra Q in another way, I'd say the cast is a bit more balanced in Ultra Q a bit. Mostly because the girl on that show is the coolest. Um,
Hell yeah.
So yeah, so they got a bit more personality going on in the Ultra side, whereas this one just feels a little like they serve their function. Like, you like Hidaka enough, Aogi is fun, and I guess they give Kyoko like something at the start of the movie, but I wish she got a bit more to do later on, because she's like, oh, she's assistant, fair. And once the movie gets further along, it's like, oh, she's because Hidaka's the one in charge of like everything, she's just kind of there helping. I mean, she's on screen. But yeah, it's I think I'm trying to think, like, is there anything else to talk about with this movie? Like, is there anything else you can think of that springs to mind? Things that set out, like moments, things that you think are like cool, interesting.
I think I talked about most of them as we went, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to super check out a conversation just because we're gonna go record a second podcast after this. So, in that case, let me think. So on the main show,
are you sure you don't just want to release this as one pod?
I have brainworms.
That's fair.
So, I like quote unquote vision. I mean, maybe it is easier for me to. I don't know. I mean, maybe we can always record it as one file, and then I can see later if I split it up.
Right. Yeah, I think that's maybe sensible. You can just copy paste the intro and outro into both episodes.
Yeah. We'll play by ear. I feel like
okay.
For organizational purposes, I wouldn't mind having them separate, but also for editing purposes, maybe it's easier to just have them as one big one, and then I edit it. I guess I'll see. This is my first time editing for two people. Woo!
I've never edited a podcast in my life. I would never.
I do at least want to get like something out before the end of this month. But yeah, we'll see. In any case, one thing we like to do on the main pod is at the end of your season we rank the kaiju. We're not doing it that way.
We can't.
Maybe what we can do is like, what we can do is like maybe have an ongoing tier ranking of the kaiju. So
okay, we're putting Gamera in S tier.
We got Gamera. S tier? You're thinking S tier? Okay, he's a good boy. He's pretty cool in this movie.
He's a good boy. He's pretty cool. Like, he's very cute. I love his design. What reason is there not to put him in S tier?
All right. Presumably for next month, I'll actually get like a tier thing going. But for now,
we've got 2 kaijus. It's fine.
Yeah, we'll get to that one later. But for now, yeah, Gamera S tier. All right, quick and easy. I know for a fact because I didn't tell anyone. No one sent any emails. But I guess if you do, you can send one and then to the ultipod@gmail.com, label as Gamera. Hopefully next time I'll be able to like say, hey, we're recording on this week, so send in stuff in advance. But for now, I guess we can wind down this, and depending on how I feel about editing, I can cut it out and see. We can do plugs later. But yeah, for now, let's do plugs. Plug yourself.
Sure. I don't really have like my own podcast. I'm a semi-regular guest on Fate Moon Archive.
Yeah,
which
did lead to. Oh, continue. I'll say my thing after.
Yeah. Yes, it's a podcast going through the long and storied history of visual novel and video game developer Type Moon. Also, that we
Yeah.
talk about a lot of Fury and other stuff in the first segment.
Yeah.
Where, where
Yeah.
yeah. I'm not. It's not my podcast, but it is the podcast I have the most episodes on. So it is the closest thing
Yeah.
to my podcast that exists.
I
I'm
I will
I'm
say that
also.
you.
Oh, you
I was gonna
first. You
say
first.
yeah, I was gonna say your regularity on Fate Move Archive did lead to the nice exchange we had a few days ago, where you were like, "Are you a 2-hour podcast person or a 6-hour podcast person?"
Yes, I had to know. It, it it would be hard to talk about Gamera for 6 hours.
Definitely, definitely. Um, Red would die if we did a podcast over 4 hours. So that's presumably something that not will happen on Ultra Q, and I don't think I'm built for that either way. But yeah. I guess yeah. If you can plug your social media too if you like. Um,
Oh, I was just gonna say, I have I'm also a visual novel writer.
oh yeah, yeah.
Uh,
You should absolutely plug that.
uh, I'm I'm my first I've written one so far. There'll definitely be at least one more this year. Ideally more. But it's hollow. It's mismatched wings .h.io. You can
Yeah,
find my first game, Hollow Hearts. It's a couple of hours. It's a Yuri game. It was made for the Menhera Game Jam. If that sounds interesting to you, you know, give it a read.
yeah. I'll probably also with your like plugs and stuff. I'll probably put your itch in the description too. Just like
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
make it easier for people. I do have to read that at some point
Yes.
myself. Um,
Yes, I guess you can also follow me on Blue Sky, but like I'm just a person living my life, so like I don't know if that would be interesting to anybody listening to this. You can throw my Blue Sky in the link
yeah.
if you're interested in a person who just like talks about whatever watching, reading. Uh,
Uh,
there is some horny posting, but it is all rot 13'd, so you can engage and not engage at your own desire.
how corny posting? I can't believe this. Can't believe this. Tisk tisk. I could never. Um,
Um, yeah, you can just pop my Blue Sky in the
yeah,
description as well, I guess.
yeah. I got you.
I'm technically still on Twitter, but I don't post it, so you know.
As for me, you can follow me at DeCrowns on both Twitter and Blue Sky. And again, you can send an email at ultraqpod@gmail.com. Put Gamera in the subject line so I know you're gonna fucking talk about the turtle and not about fucking Ultra and Leo. If for whatever reason you are listening to this on this feed and aren't listening to Ultraman, I feel like that's like a small subsection of people, but it's probably someone. We just started Ultra and Leo on the main show, and it's looking pretty sick. So we're excited to cover it. And yeah, I think that's it for us this time. We're gonna keep the mics going, so I just have it one file. But for now, we don't have a sign off.
I'll see you in the depths of Atlantis. That's our sign off. I came up with that on the cuff. I think it's good.
Yeah, going down deep. See you in Shell.